Hi all. I want to take a moment to dig deeper into the concept of conflicts in our literary elements learning. So if you see here on the screen, this is a great web page. I love how they describe the 4 external and internal conflicts in literature. So think of conflicts, we learn the basic terminology. Now we're going to dig into how literature breaks these conflicts into particular conflicts or tensions between different ideas in literature. You should have your workbook with you, and at this point I just want you to write down the definitions, and each one is already on there. So person versus self. So this is man versus himself. And if you look here, it says battling the inner demons. This is a great way to think about person versus self. This is also known as internal conflict. So this idea of man versus man. And so when you watch the video on the difference between problem and conflict, conflict when it comes to the self was like the cell phone video with the young lady with the boyfriend's cell phone. Do I or don't I look at those text messages? The next one is person versus person. This is man versus man. And if you look here, it says only one can win. So this is the traditional setup where you have a character who is opposing another character. Very typical in most of the books that we read. You'll have 2 sets of characters in conflict. The next one is person versus nature. And this is man versus nature. And this, I love this definition, is braving the elements. So this is the one where I talked about in the last video, the penguin whose setting is a hot deserted beach. You know, a tropical beach with the sun. So think of it that way. And then the last one we never really got into, and I maybe didn't introduce in the first video for conflict. I said there were 3, most of the traditional, but in the high school we start getting into this one here. It's called person versus society. Whoops, sorry. And this is, I love this definition. Again, go ahead and write it into your workbook, sticking it to the man. And so this is when a protagonist, most often, is really struggling against society. I didn't put it in my initial video, but I think it's something we're going to explore here in the near future. Okay, so go ahead and write those into the workbook. The next video we're going to actually be looking at actual examples, and then I'm going to ask you to go in to YouTube and find your own examples to share those out and have a discussion about how to build some complexity around the literature element of conflict.